You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with Jake Wallis Simons, editor of the Jewish Chronicle, and Natalie Fahy, editor of Nottinghamshire Live. So let us see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Well, the Sunday Telegraph leads with Liz Truss saying she was brought down by the left-wing economic establishment. Rishi Sunak is prepared to pull the UK out of the European Convention on Human Rights. That's on the front page of the Sunday Times. The Sunday Express reports that thousands of lives are at risk after a 10-year cancer strategy was ditched. The first victim of rapist and police officer David Carrick reveals her identity on the front page of the Sunday People. And the Star has the story of locals protesting outside the bail hostel of Gary Glitter following his release from prison. A reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by Jake Wallis Simons, editor of the Jewish Chronicle, and Natalie Fahy, editor of Nottinghamshire Live. Welcome to both of you. Let's start with the Times and their headline, US shoots down Chinese spy balloon. We've seen this play before our very eyes this evening. It was the breaking news. I'm not sure how much you've seen of the footage from this evening, Jake, but certainly a dramatic conclusion to that balloon being over the coast of South Carolina.
Yes, I mean, I think the most extraordinary thing about this was that it's a visual symbol, finally, of the undercover conflict, I suppose, between the United States and China that's been taking place in recent decades, frankly. Mostly that war has been an economic war for dominance, with China seeking to use all manner of means, both overt and covert, to gain economic dominance, both over the United States and around the globe, in Africa, in South America and elsewhere. But also, in terms of espionage. And this was the first time, really, for a very, very long time indeed, that we've seen that actually come out into the open with this spy balloon that was the size of 3 school buses floating merrily over sensitive military sites in the States, only to be brought down by an American Sidewinder missile. So it does feel like the Chinese pushing the envelope and seeing how much they can get away with in provoking America, and seeing what the response might be under this Biden administration.
Natalie, that does have to be the conclusion that we come to, because there was no way that the Chinese would have thought this wouldn't have been detected.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the whole thing is quite ludicrous. And you look on Twitter and you're seeing all these sort of memes emerge of people sitting in their back gardens with shotguns trying to take shots at it and bring it down, which they're obviously warned not to do. But it's quite interesting that these balloons can actually fly at 150,000 feet, whereas this one, I think, was flying at 60,000 feet. So the whole idea behind it was to be spotted. I mean, it was huge. It had all this paraphernalia, solar panels, surveillance equipment, suspended from the bottom as a huge white balloon. Everyone was filming it and spotting it. So how could you miss it? It was absolutely huge, and that was obviously the intention behind it.
And Jake, the question has to be now, where does this leave China's relationship with the United States of America? We know that Antony Blinken was due to be there this weekend, but that trip was cancelled because this balloon was in American airspace.
That's right. I mean, certainly it does call upon the Biden administration to act firmly, but Joe Biden is not known for his firm action in foreign policy, unlike his predecessor Donald Trump. And it's interesting that these sorts of provocations, these sorts of episodes in which foreign dictators test the United States are happening more under Biden's watch, as they seek to see just how serious he would be in laying down the law. And of course, we've seen Ukraine happening. The attack on Crimea happened during Barack Obama's administration, nothing during the Trump administration. Now the Ukraine war under Biden. And the sort of elephant in the room is Taiwan. That would be the next step for China to take, to invade Taiwan. And you can just see China testing the water and seeing what the response is going to be.
Yes, Natalie, the president, we heard from him this evening saying that he'd actually given the order on Wednesday to shoot the balloon down. So he's been quite emphatic and obviously wanting to be seen as very strong in this.
He has been, yes. And obviously we saw the clip of him being questioned and he said, yes, we're going to deal with it, don't worry. But we saw the Republicans really coming out strong. I think Donald Trump shouted on whatever social media platform he's using nowadays, just shoot it down. But obviously we have to think about the public who are on the ground. There was a lot of stuff attached to the bottom of this balloon and, painful as it was for people and to see it floating slowly over the country. They had to wait till it got over water so it was safe and they could shoot it down at that point. And there was that great video of all the bits on the bottom falling into the sea, which are now rapidly being recovered. So hopefully the US can get some information out of that. Massive backfire for China there because we might get something useful out of that.
Yes, that recovery operation, as you suggest, will be a minefield of information that the Americans will want to tap into. Let's have a look at the Telegraph and this story about Liz Truss, our erstwhile Prime Minister. I think this is probably her first interview or article since she left Downing Street, and she's blaming the left-wing economic establishment for her demise, Jake.
Yes, I mean, I think this story is really the marmalade dropper of the morning tomorrow. Liz Truss had written a 4,000-word essay in the Telegraph giving her side of what happened in her short-lived prime ministership and how it was crashed and how it burned. And she's blaming a lot of different people. She's mainly blaming the economic establishment in Whitehall, which in her view has a sort of left-wing bias favouring high taxes and high spending of the sort that we see now. And it has a disproportionate influence on the markets. And so that sort of worked against her when she tried to implement her more radical plans. She blames some other people and entities as well. She blames her predecessors, Boris Johnson, Theresa May, and David Cameron, for not sufficiently imbibing the party and the country with a respect for a low tax approach, and instead allowing the creep of high tax culture to overtake the UK. And she criticises Treasury officials as well, and SPADs and advisors, for not warning her about the pension crisis that would follow her policies, which would then trigger the gilt crisis and everything else that we know. So a lot of blame going around. And I do have some sympathy for her. We do need growth in this country. We do need to go back to a sense of having taxes under control and lower, and public spending under control as well. But I think that she fails to recognise that the main problem was that her tax cuts were unfunded. And that was, above everything else, that was what really spooked the markets. And also, of course, if she shouldn't have been surprised by this opposition that she faced. She'd been in politics and in government for a very long time. It can't have been any surprise to her that Whitehall was dominated by what she called left-wing economic orthodoxy.
Natalie, does she accept any personal responsibility at all anywhere in this 3,000-word essay?
No, she doesn't seem to. And even the picture of her there is a massive picture. She looks quite smug, I think it'd be fair to say. I thought the sort of, there was a couple of killer bits in there, really, where she even seemed to blame the public for not having an understanding of tax and economic policies nowadays, which, is quite harsh, really. And there was this sort of killer line at the end there where just slid in. A senior government source said Miss Truss's approach failed then and will fail if tried again. So just a massive warning. Don't try to make a comeback.
Do you think that this is the beginning of a comeback for the former Prime Minister? Is this her way of drawing a line under what happened and saying, I'm here and I'm up for business once more?
I don't think it's her trying to make a comeback as such, but I think it's certainly an attempt to destabilise Rishi Sunak, who's already becoming a little bit destabilised anyway. We've heard lots of talk of all the WhatsApp messages that have been buzzing around, the groups coming back to life that brought her to power in the first place. She's doing a massive talk on China. She's sort of manoeuvring again, and she's doing a big TV interview with, well, we don't know who. Apparently the BBC bid for it, and it's gone to a rival. I don't know if it's going to be Sky News, maybe it will be, or somebody else. So it's not a comeback as such, but it's kind of, don't forget about me. I'm still here and I was right, so don't forget it.
Jake, just very quickly, do you think she is trying to undermine Rishi Sunak? He's not mentioned by name anywhere, is he?
He's not mentioned by name, but I think that really what she's trying to do is to influence the direction of policy more in her favour in terms of this growth agenda. We've seen the emergence recently of a pro-growth caucus of Tory MPs, which is gaining steam and gaining momentum inside the parliamentary party. And Liz Truss, of course, is the absolute paragon of that kind of pro-growth ideology, although, as we've seen, the implementation of that ideology was very badly done and ended up with a disaster. But I think that she is definitely trying to undermine Rishi Sunak's attempt to enforce this sort of centrist, high tax Britain. And, with her slinging hand grenades from one side and Boris from the other, it does make Rishi Sunak's job a lot harder as the next election looms.
Which moves us on to the Express, and they have the headline there: voters say Rishi's better than Boris, but not Sir Keir. Polling reveals strong support for a snap election within the next 6 weeks. Natalie.
I was surprised to read that. I mean, who would really want an election in the next 6 weeks? I think we're all just happy having a bit of calm for now. But this poll, which was carried out by Redfield and Wilson Strategies, so 32% backed Rishi Sunak to be Prime Minister, but interestingly, 14% didn't know out of Keir and Rishi Keir Starmer, the Labour leader, obviously, who they would want to be Prime Minister. So people are massively undecided, and they do think that Rishi's better than Boris, which I suppose is some comfort to everything we went to last year. Doesn't look like Boris is popular among people, wouldn't be potentially making a comeback. But, if we did have an election soon, it's looking like there is going to be one next year. It's going to be a tight one, I think, probably, because people just don't know who they want to vote for.
But, Jake, Rishi Sunak isn't going to be up against Boris Johnson in a general election. It will be Sir Keir Starmer, who he doesn't seem to be faring very well against, according to this poll, at least.
Yes, I mean, there's two lessons come out of this, really. The first is that, Boris has got some support within the Tory party, a growing level of support behind the idea of him making a comeback because he's this proven election winner. That's the sort of idea that's floating around. And this suggests that might be misguided, as he only gained 27% support against a much higher score for Rishi Sunak. But then the other lesson is that Rishi is polling lower than Keir Starmer at the moment. Keir Starmer on 40% and Rishi on 32%, according to this poll. But something like 48% of people didn't know which was better. And that's got to be encouraging for Rishi Sunak, because at this point, given everything that's happened recently, not just in terms of Boris Johnson, Liz Truss and all of the Partygate and all the rest of it, but also the sleaze that's dogged the Tory party in recent weeks, you would have thought that Keir Starmer would be further ahead than he is. And you would have thought there wouldn't be so many people who are basically swing voters who are undecided in the middle. And so it does feel like there is a small window through which Rishi might be able to squeak in 2024.
Just a bit more detail is saying that the poll, more than two-thirds of people, 67%, think there's a culture of sleaze. This follows Nadeem Zahawi being sacked as party chairman for a serious breach of the ministerial code after failing to disclose his tax affairs were under investigation. Only 27% said Mr Sunak had upheld values of integrity, professionalism and accountability. And remember that those are values that he said at the beginning of his term that he would uphold. For the moment, Jake and Natalie, thank you both. We are going to take a break. Coming up, we'll take a look at the Express front page featuring the police appeal for a new witness in the Nicola Bulley case. Stay with us. Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, Jake Wallis Simons, editor of the Jewish Chronicle, and Natalie Fahy, editor of Nottinghamshire Live. Welcome back to both of you. Let's take a look at the Times, and they're reporting that Rishi Sunak's threatening to pull the UK out of the European Convention on Human Rights. Take us into the detail of this story, Jake.
Yes, well, this is the Prime Minister and Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, trying very much to get to grips with this small boats crisis. There's predicted to be 65,000 people coming over this coming year, as opposed to 45,000 last year. So that's an uplift of almost 50%. So these numbers are really spiralling out of control. They're trying to get to grips with it. And the latest proposal is to legislate to mean that anybody coming illegally from France to Britain will be unable to claim asylum. So this is a bold legal move by the government. And what they're trying to do is to predict the obstacles that might arise to that being implemented. As we've seen in the past, those obstacles come from many sources. And they include from human rights lawyers in Britain trying to appeal against that ruling. They're trying to legislate for that not to be possible either. But now they're looking at the European Convention for Human Rights, so that if British judges are able to pass that legislation, so that it wouldn't be overturned by Strasbourg, by the European Court of Human Rights there. There's been talk before in recent years by Tory governments about withdrawing from the European Convention on Human Rights and replacing it with a British Bill of Rights. At that time, it was mainly about the deportation of foreign criminals. So this is another manifestation of that same idea. And really what they're trying to do is to preempt all of the possible obstacles to the implementation of this policy with an aim of really trying to get on top of this crisis now.
Natalie, there is likely to be a legal challenge to this, though, isn't there?
Yes, of course there will be. I mean, we've seen so many hurdles to the government getting through immigration policies over the past couple of years. It's not going to be an easy path for them, whatever they try to do. And it says in there they're finalising plans for the most draconian immigration legislation seen in this country. So, it's obviously going to be something along the lines of what we saw when the government attempted to put illegal immigrants on a plane to Rwanda, something along those lines possibly. But the government obviously realises that this is an incredibly important issue for voters. You don't need to read that piece in the Times to know that. You just have to speak to people on the street, speak to members of your family. People just want the government to take control of it, do something, make sure that the people coming into this country have a genuine reason to be here. And, to make sure that people who've been put in hotels have somewhere safe to go, that they're sorted correctly, processed correctly, and that they're in safe living conditions and they can either stay here or they're not allowed to stay here. At the moment, it all feels quite chaotic, and it's quite right that the government is trying to take control of it. But we'll see what happens.
Jake, to the Express and the latest in the search for Nicola Bulley, police looking for a new key witness.
That's right. I mean, this is such a heartbreaking case, and I think at the centre of it really is this mystery of what happened to her. There's such little evidence to go on. All the police have at the moment is this hypothesis that she probably fell into the river while trying to retrieve a tennis ball and drowned on account of wearing two coats that became waterlogged. But they don't actually know. And now they're appealing for this particular witness, a woman in a yellow coat who was pushing a pushchair along the river path around the time when Nicola disappeared. They're appealing for her. They're also appealing for any drivers who might possibly have dashcam footage from around the area at the time when she disappeared as well, to rack their brains if they've got any footage at all to come forward. And the Sun has reported that they're also seeking to analyse data from Nicola's Fitbit as well, see if that sheds any light on the situation. So a tragic and heartbreaking case. We can only hope that at the very least we get some idea of just what happened to poor Nicola.
Yes, very painful for the family. That's what we're all praying for. Let's have a look at this story, the last one I think we'll have time for, in the Express. This is page 7 of the Express, and it's the Princess of Wales. She's shared a photo of herself as a child. Why, Natalie?
Well, that's an absolutely adorable photo. It's a photo of the Princess of Wales reaching for her father's face, Michael Middleton, and the picture's taken by Kate Middleton's mother, Carol. And this is to publicise the launch of the Princess of Wales' new campaign to highlight how important early years are for children. And faces are young children's favourite toys. That's what she says. And I think she's probably right. Children do love, and babies do love, grabbing faces and looking at faces, and they learn a lot from people's expressions. So, great campaign from the Princess of Wales. But I think what people are saying is we could do some cash and some investment as well as the awareness. So maybe we'll see a bit of that as well. That would be good.
Yes, Jake, wondering if you feel that we need perhaps, or what campaigners are saying, they need more than pictures and awareness, that there does need to be some injection of money to have real change.
Well, I mean, I've always been one of those who believes very much in the importance of early childhood and early childhood care. I do think that the drive to get women out to work as early as possible, I think, is mistaken, because I think it's bad for child development, and I think that has long-term implications for society. So I do welcome Princess Kate's campaign. I think she's doing a very noble thing in drawing attention to this.